Good morning. My name's Gillian Whitehouse, and my presentation looks at two international assessment. Let's see the people over there. Case studies, and these case studies are linked by the idea of security and assessment. I think it's a fascinating subject. Other people might think it's a little bit boring, but security and assessment. But also the integrity of those assessments as well. I work for an organisation called Alpha Plus, and a lot of people have asked me who are Alpha Plus. Well, Alpha Plus is an education consultancy, and we are differentiated by from other consultancies in that we have particular expertise in the areas of assessment development, qualification development, e-learning and e-assessment. We work in the UK, but also we work internationally with awarding organisations. We support awarding organisations, but also we work with international and UK governments and their agencies. Just a little bit about myself. I'll stand back so I can actually see everybody. A little bit about myself. I'm head of business development for Alpha Plus. But as far as my career is concerned, I've worked for mainly awarding bodies in the past. In my last position, I was a head of assessment development at National Foundation for Educational Research. Before that, I worked for the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply. Before that, I worked for the University of Cambridge International Exams, and before that, I worked for Edexcel. The reason why I say that is that somewhere in there's a bit of a clue to the next section that I'm going to talk about. So, the focus of the talk today is, as I've already sort of said, it's about assessments, international assessments, with a focus on security. And there are two case studies, and what I'm going to do is to look at issues to do with security, and then look at how awarding organisations have come up with solutions to solve these issues. And I'm looking at two particular case studies. One is to do with time zone question papers, and the other one is called Secure PDF. So the first case study then, the time zone question papers. The issue that was faced by this particular awarding body was an international awarding organisation. It was based in the UK, but it worked in 160 countries with absolutely loads and loads of centres. The centres were schools, so something in excess of 9,000 schools. As you're probably well aware, there are 40 world time zones. Out of the 40, there are 24 standard time zones, but additionally to that, there are something like 16 other time zones, because some countries don't conform to the standard time zones. What they do is they set their time not within the standard hour, but they set it at increments at either 15 minutes, 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So essentially these other countries have their own time zones as well. So time zones is not an exact science, and it's also something that's really quite complicated. So here are the 24 standard time zones illustrated, and you can see that as I say, some countries don't conform to the standard time zones. For instance, if you look at China, say in comparison to the United States, China itself crosses 4 standard time zones, but in actual fact, what they do is they just have one time zone for the entire country. So, part of China is kind of working in the dark half of the time. Essentially, that's what goes on. The line that goes down the middle is the Coordinated Universal Time line, and that's the line at which clocks are regulated by. So to the right of that line, the clocks are plus an hour from the Coordinated Universal Time, and to the left it's minus an hour. So that's sort of how it works throughout the world. So the problem was this, really. For this particular awarding body, working in 160 different countries, in schools, with children, they had one question paper, and it was one question paper for ROW, the rest of the world, for the whole world. What they did is that they, because they're working with children, they set for the East, they set the exams in the afternoon, and for the West, they set the exams in the morning, all within the 24 hours. So, but these times didn't actually overlap, or they overlapped a little bit, but essentially different schools in the different time zones had different examination windows. So, okay, you've got the picture, you've got all of these time zones, you've got all of these schools across the world, and you've got different examination windows. So what do you think happened? Yes. I think you know.
People communicated the paper from one part of the world to the other.
People communicated. That's exactly what happened. What the big problem was, and it was a crisis at the time, and I was working in this awarding body, and I remember it very, very clearly. A student in one of the eastern countries sat the exam in the afternoon, and they came out of the exam and they remembered all the questions on the examination paper, and they wrote all the questions on YouTube. And in the West, when the students woke up in the morning ready to sit their exams, there were the questions. So it's a huge security issue. The paper had to be cancelled. It was a main core paper. It's a gateway qualification. So this was a very, very, very serious situation. And you can imagine the awarding body at that time, who ran this system for all of their examination papers, was extremely worried that actually in that year the same thing would happen for all the subsequent papers. So the solution that they developed was quite a sophisticated solution, I think. What they did is they looked at the time zones, and they created 6 administrative time zones, key time zones, and you can see that they're listed there, and they pick up groups of countries in time zones that essentially share sort of similar times. So that's how that was put together. The next thing that was done, if you read down that list, you can see that it's a course subject, a gateway qualification, high stakes, mathematics. So the next thing that was done was the 3 time zone question papers were created. So it wasn't just one paper, it was 3 papers. And the papers were then delivered in paired time zones, countries with the time zones that were similar to each other. So the countries in time zone 6 were sharing the paper with the countries in time zone 5. Not only that, but also the countries in time zone 6 would sit their paper in the afternoon, and the countries in time zone 5 sitting the same paper would sit that in the morning, and there would be then direct overlap of the examination window, and then the same for the rest of the other time zones and the other question papers. Linked to that, so we've got the 3 time zone question papers, we've got the 6 administrative zones, we've got key times, so the centres are either given a time from 10 o'clock in the morning till 1, that's the morning examination window, or from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 5. And the exams are sat during those periods. And so students are either in the exam sitting the paper, and if they finish the paper, then there's really sort of tight security around supervision. So they're then sort of taken to a room and supervised under the sort of high security conditions. So in no way can information leak out about the examination papers. So put together, all of those features have created a series of papers and a structure that is now a sort of highly secure structure. But it has to be, because these are high-stakes gateway qualifications. So essentially, that was one solution. And the next case study here is called Secure PDF. Now, this is quite interesting because Alpha Plus were approached by an awarding organisation, a chartered institute that worked in the UK, and they came to us with a particular problem. Their problem was that they, like the previous example, worked in many countries around the world, but they were a professional awarding organisation, so some of their centres had only a few candidates. So it could be, one or two candidates, but still, they had to ship the papers out. I'm talking about paper-based, not computer-based papers. Ship the papers out, and the cost of shipping the papers out to these low candidate centres was exactly the same. It was a high cost, essentially, as it would cost to ship papers out to centres where there were, 500 or 600 or even more candidates. So they came along to us and said, really what they wanted was some sort of very secure but low-cost solution to be able to address this problem. So Alpha Plus developed a system called Secure PDF. And what this system is capable of doing is, in a secure environment, awarding organisations are able to upload exam packs. Now, an exam pack includes the PDF of the actual examination itself. So it could be generated in Surpass, for instance, and then created as a PDF or a printable version. So it's uploaded to a secure environment, but also an exam pack includes absolutely everything that goes along with the supporting an examination. So it could be stimulus material, or it could be the list of the candidates sitting the examination. We're working with Cambridge at the moment, and they've also asked for other types of files to be uploaded as part of an exam pack. For instance, they're looking at MP3 files for the speaking and listening examination. So again, all these files can be captured in this secure environment. Also, the awarding organisation then can create an examination window, and the examination window actually specifies when this exam pack can be downloaded, so the start date of download, and it also specifies the end date of download. And then the awarding organisation can then allocate that exam pack to a centre or a whole series of centres. And then finally, within Secure PDF, there's the facility then to send mass emails to centres to say, you can access the system, here's the password to access the system, and your exam pack is now ready for download, and these are the dates. So these are all the things that this system is capable of doing. This is the main dashboard, and this is the view that the awarding organisation would get. It's very straightforward, and you can see here in a very sort of easy to navigate way, an awarding organisation can have a look to see which papers have been allocated to which centres. So in the case of Singapore, highlighted in green there, you can see that Singapore has been allocated three sets of papers, and you can also see very clearly which centres have actually downloaded the papers. So that's marked in the red box, and Singapore, in this example, has downloaded test paper 1. What the centre actually sees is even more straightforward. So they are sent a password to say to access the system, give them information about how where to go and how to log on to the system. And this is the pane that they see, the panel that they see. And essentially it shows what's available for download and what's available for download in the near future and also in the distant future. There's sort of lots and lots of layers of security with this system. Obviously, that's why it's called Secure PDF. And one of the layers of security is when the centre is actually downloading the exams, the PDFs, and the examination, the rest of the material in the exam pack. As the papers are downloaded, they are encrypted and they are watermarked. So as they're being downloaded and as they're being printed out, they're watermarked with the time, the date, and the centre's details. And the reason why this is done is so that the awarding organisation can keep an audit trail of that paper, who it's gone to and who's downloaded it. So what have we learnt so far from this system? Well, the awarding organisations who've been using this system have said that it's improved security over and above that would normally exist in either postal delivery of exam papers or portal delivery. And the AOs have absolutely complete control over when these exam papers can be downloaded, but probably more importantly, they also have a complete record, a complete audit trail. This system has now been going for 2.5 years, and from a centre's point of view, the feedback is that it works. From the awarding organisation point of view as well, they're absolutely happy with it, and there have been no glitches, there have been no significant issues. The other sorts of applications that this system can be used for, generally we're talking about, small-scale download, because the centres will download the paper and they'll print off as many as they need for any one examination session. But there are other things that it can be used for, late entries, for instance. So for the larger awarding organisations, if they're looking at late entries, and also exceptions, exceptional circumstance, when a candidate would maybe not normally receive the paper, if there was some sort of natural disaster, for instance, and the paper was unable to be transported to that centre. This is a way of getting those papers in a secure condition to those centres. So those are the two case studies. They both had a sort of series of issues and a series of solutions attached to them. Alpha Plus will support awarding organisations to provide these sorts of solutions. If you are interested in what Alpha Plus does, and also if you are interested particularly in Secure PDF, on the tables there's some folders and there's some information about Secure PDF. I haven't printed out enough for everybody, but if you are interested, please pick up a folder or the information leaflet and take it with you. Okay, thank you for listening.